the first time I saw Julian Carter. He was a silhouette against the neon pulse of Times Square, his tailored suit cutting through the chaos like a blade. I was just another broke artist, sketching strangers for pocket change, when his shadow fell over my sketchpad. By the end of the night, I'd signed a contract to be his boyfriend, a deal that promised to save me from eviction but threatened to unravel my heart. My name is Ethan Brooks, and I never imagined my life would hinge on a single signature. New York City in 2025 is a beast. All sharp edges and impossible dreams. I'd been scraping by. My tiny Brooklyn apartment a shrine to half-finished canvases and overdue bills. That night, Julian's offer felt like a lifeline. Pretend to be his partner for 6 months. Attend glitzy events. Smile for the cameras. And walk away with 50 grand. He needed a wholesome image to appease his family's corporate empire. I needed to not starve. Simple. Right. Julian was everything I was: polished, powerful, untouchable. At 32, he was the heir to Carter Industries, a tech giant that seemed to own half the city's skyline. His dark eyes held secrets, and his smile could charm a room or break it. The contract was clear: no real feelings, no complications. We'd play our parts, then part ways. But the moment he took my hand at our first stage date, his touch lingered too long, and I felt something dangerous stir inside me. Our first date was at a rooftop gala in Manhattan, the kind of place where champagne flutes cost more than my rent. I wore a suit Julian's assistant picked out, feeling like an imposter among the elite. He introduced me as his boyfriend with such effortless warmth that I almost believed it. "Ethan's an artist," he said, his hand resting lightly on my lower back. The crowd cooed, charmed by the story of the billionaire and the starving artist. I smiled, but my heart raced, not from the attention, but from the way his fingers pressed gently against me, like he meant it. Backstage, away from the cameras, he was different. "You're doing great," he said, his voice low, almost tender. "Just keep looking at me like you're in love." I laughed it off, but his gaze held mine a beat too long, and I wondered if he was acting too. The contract forbade anything real, but every stolen glance felt like a breach. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm. Publicly, we were the perfect couple hand-holding at charity events, laughing over coffee for the paparazzi. Privately, we were strangers sharing a script. Julian's penthouse became my second home, a sterile palace of glass and steel where we rehearsed our lines. He'd coach me on his family's expectations, his voice clipped and professional. But then he'd pour me a drink, his fingers brushing mine, and the air would shift. I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, his expression unreadable. One night, after a particularly grueling event, we ended up on his balcony, the city sprawling below us. I was exhausted, my guard down, and I let slip that I'd never been in love. Not really. Julian went quiet, then said, "It's overrated. Messy. But it's nice to pretend, isn't it?" His voice was soft, and when he looked at me, I felt exposed, like he saw more than I wanted him to. The contract was supposed to be a shield, keeping us at arm's length. But the more we played our roles, the harder it was to tell where the act ended and we began. I started noticing the way his laugh softened when we were alone, the way he'd linger when he said goodnight. I told myself it was part of the performance, but my heart wasn't listening. Then came the first crack in our facade. At a family dinner with the Carters, his mother, Eleanor, cornered me. She was all sharp edges, her smile a warning. "You're not his usual type," she said, her voice dripping with suspicion. "Julian doesn't do commitment. Be careful, Ethan." I brushed it off, but her words lingered. Was I just a prop in Julian's game, or was there something real behind his touch? That night, Julian drove me home, The silence between us heavy. "Don't listen to her," he said finally, his hands tight on the wheel. "She doesn't know me." But I wondered if I did either. When he walked me to my door, he hesitated, then pulled me into a hug. It wasn't in the script. His arms were warm, steady, and for a moment, I forgot the contract existed. "You're more than enough," he whispered, and my chest ached with something I couldn't name. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized I was in trouble. The contract was clear: no feelings, no future. But when Julian held me, it didn't feel fake anymore. And that scared me more than anything. The days blurred into a montage of staged affection and stolen moments. Julian and I were a headline now, the billionaire's artist splashed across tabloids and gossip blogs. Every smile, every touch, was dissected by strangers online, and I felt like I was living in a fishbowl. But the real danger wasn't the camera sit, was the way Julian's presence was starting to feel like home. We were 3 months into the contract, and the lines were getting blurry. At a tech conference in San Francisco, Julian pulled me onto the dance floor, his hand firm on my waist. The crowd melted away, and for a moment, it was just us, swaying to a slow jazz number. "You're getting too good at this," he murmured, his lips close to my ear. I laughed, but my heart was pounding. Was he teasing? Or was there something more in his voice? Back in New York, the pretense was harder to maintain. Julian started inviting me to his penthouse when there were no cameras, no scripts. We'd watch old movies, sprawled on his ridiculously expensive couch, sharing takeout and stories. He told me about his childhood, how his father's expectations had crushed any chance of rebellion. I opened up about my art, how every brushstroke felt like a fight to be seen. We were supposed to be playing roles, but these moments felt raw, real. One night, after too much wine, I asked him why he'd chosen me. "You're honest," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "You don't pretend to be something you're not, except with me." The words stung, but before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. It was soft, tentative, and over too soon. "I'm sorry," he said, pulling back. "That wasn't. I shouldn't have. But I wanted him to." The kiss haunted me. It wasn't in the contract, and neither was the way my skin burned where he'd touched me. I started noticing things I hadn't before: the way he'd text me late at night just to check in, the way he'd linger when we said goodbye. But doubt crept in too. Was he playing me, keeping me hooked for the sake of the deal? His mother's words echoed: "Julian doesn't do commitment." The tension came to a head at a Carter Industries board meeting. I was there as arm candy, but the room was a battlefield. Julian's uncle, Richard, a vulture in a suit, grilled him about the company's future. "You need stability, Julian," he said, glancing at me. "Not distractions." I felt like a pawn in their game. And when Julian didn't defend me, it cut deeper than I expected. Later, in his office, I confronted him. "Am I just a prop to you?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked stricken. "Ethan, no. You're..." He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "You're not just anything." That night, he showed up at my apartment, soaked from the rain. "I can't keep doing this," he said, his voice raw. "Pretending with you's killing me." Before I could process his words, he kissed me again, this time with a hunger that stole my breath. It was desperate, real, and terrifying. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered, "but I want to try for real." I wanted to believe him, but the contract loomed over us like a guillotine. We had 3 months left, and I was already in too deep. The next day, I found a note slipped under my door. In Julian's sharp handwriting, Meet me at the High Line tomorrow. No cameras. Just us. My heart raced. But fear gnawed at me. Was this another act? Or was Julian finally showing me the man behind the mask? The High Line was quiet. The city's hum softened by the greenery. Julian was waiting. His usual polish replaced by something vulnerable. He took my hand, leading me to a bench overlooking the Hudson. I've spent my life playing roles, he said. For my family. For the company. But with you, I don't want to pretend anymore. His words were a lifeline. But I couldn't shake the fear that this was too good to be true. As we walked, his hand in mine, I felt the weight of the contract lift. Just for a moment. But reality was waiting. A text from his assistant buzzed on his phone. Eleanor wants a meeting. She knows about the contract. My stomach dropped. If his mother exposed us, everything our deal, our feelings could come crashing down. Eleanor Carter's office was a fortress of glass and power, perched on the top floor of Carter Industries headquarters. I sat across from her, Julian at my side, his jaw tight. She didn't waste time. I found the contract, she said, sliding a copy across the desk. This little charade ends now. Her voice was ice, but her eyes burned with something worse: disappointment. I felt exposed, like a fraud. But Julian's hand found mine under the table, grounding me. Mother, it's not what you think, Julian said, his voice steady but strained. Ethan and I, she cut him off. You don't get to play house with the help. Julian, this company needs you focused, not chasing fairy tales. The word help stung, but Julian's grip tightened, and I saw something in him I hadn't before: defiance. I love him, he said, the words ringing in the sterile room. My heart stopped. Was it true? Or was he saving face? Eleanor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Love. You don't know the meaning of the word. She turned to me, her gaze sharp. And you, Ethan, did you think you could climb into our world with a signature? I wanted to shrink. But Julian stood, pulling me with him. We're done here, he said, and led me out, his hand never leaving mine. In the elevator, he didn't speak, but his thumb traced circles on my palm, and I felt the weight of his confession. Outside, the city roared, but we were silent as we walked to his penthouse. Did you mean it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Julian looked at me, his eyes raw. Every word, he said. I've been falling for you since the first night. He kissed me then, slow and deliberate, and for the first time, I let myself believe it was real. But belief is fragile. The next morning, a gossip blog leaked the contract. Headlines screamed, billionaire's fake boyfriend exposed. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, strangers, everyone. Julian's team went into damage control, but the fallout was brutal. At a press conference, he stood by my side, his voice unwavering. Ethan and I started as an arrangement, but what we have now is real. I love him, and I'm not ashamed. The crowd erupted, but his hand in mine was all that mattered. Privately, though, doubt crept in. Julian's family was fracturing, his position at Carter Industries shaky. I'm dragging you down, I told him one night, curled up in his bed. He pulled me close, his voice fierce. You're the only thing keeping me sane. But the world outside wasn't so kind. Protesters gathered outside his building, calling him a fraud. My art was trashed online as opportunistic. The contract had been a shield, but now it was a weapon. We fought to hold on. Late nights became our sanctuary, where words weren't needed, just touch, breath, the quiet truth of us. But Eleanor wasn't done. She called Julian to a private meeting, and he returned pale, shaken. She's threatening to cut me off, he said. The company, the money, everything. I felt sick. I can't let you lose that, I said. He grabbed my face, his eyes blazing. I'd rather lose it all than lose you. The next day, we faced the board together. Julian laid it all bare, the contract, our feelings, everything. I'm done pretending, he said. Ethan is my future, not this company. The room was silent, but I saw respect in some eyes, resentment in others. Richard, his uncle, smirked. You're throwing it all away for him. Julian didn't flinch. I'm choosing him. That night, we stood on his balcony, the city glittering below. What happens now? I asked. Julian smiled, softer than I'd ever seen. We figure it out. Together. For the first time, I believed in a future beyond the contract. But the world wasn't finished with us yet. The fallout was relentless. Carter Industries' stock dipped, and Julian's face was everywhere, hero to some, villain to others. I couldn't open my phone without seeing my own name dragged through the mud. But Julian never wavered. He hired a PR team to rebuild his image. But more than that, he fought for us. I don't care what they say, he told me, his voice steady. You're worth it. We moved to a small apartment in Brooklyn, away from the penthouse's sterile glow. It was cramped, chaotic, and ours. For the first time, I painted without fear, my brushstrokes bold with love. Julian watched me work, his smile quiet but real. You're incredible, he said, and I felt it in my bones. Eleanor tried to break us. She froze Julian's accounts, citing instability. But he'd prepared, stashing enough to keep us afloat. I don't need her money, he said. But I saw the pain in his eyes. Losing his family hurt more than losing the empire. I held him that night. Our roles reversed. You're enough, I whispered, echoing his words from months ago. The world began to shift. A viral post from a young artist who'd seen my work called me authentic. And suddenly, my paintings were selling. Julian's tech startup, a side project he'd kept secret, gained traction, free from his family's shadow. We were building something new. Together. One evening, we walked the High Line again, hand in hand. The city felt different now, less like a beast, more like a witness to our story. Julian stopped, pulling a small box from his pocket. My breath caught. No contract this time, he said, opening it to reveal a simple ring. Ethan Brooks, will you marry me for real? Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, words failing me. He slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed, the city cheering us on. The wedding was small, just close friends and a few allies from the board. Eleanor didn't come, but Julian's sister, Mia, hugged me tight. You make him happy, she whispered. We danced under string lights, the contract a distant memory. When Julian held me, there was no pretense, just love, fierce and undeniable. Years later, I'd look back on that contract as the strangest gift. It was a lie that led to truth, a performance that became our life. Julian and I built a home, a gallery, a legacy. The world still judged, but we didn't care. In his arms, I knew what was real, and it was everything.